welcome to another episode of EMA Cloud Rants. Today we have two special guests. Guys, introduce yourself, Gregg.
Gregg Holzrichter, CMO of Big Switch Networks.
Shamus McGilcuddy, networking senior analyst at EMA.
Very good. And we want to talk about a topic where we really need both of you guys. It's about this notion of the software-defined data center and how software should actually define the data center, right? And by software, I mean the actual application, the ERP, the website, the whatever system runs on the data center should be able to source the resources, network storage, compute, security, that make sense to that software based on policies, based on SLAs, based on cost, based on all types of considerations that are just a given in every business. Instead, Shamus, this takes way too long. And one of the culprits for this taking way too long is the network, right? The VMware vCenter guy, the VMware administrator, places an order for some storage, some networking, some compute, and it's often days, weeks, or in worst cases, even months to get an environment. Why is that, and what do we need to do to get this fixed?
Well, legacy networking technologies are based on a distributed control plane that is very hard to access and program centrally, which makes it more suited for something for infrastructure that's more static than a software-defined data center, because every change request that comes into the networking team kicks off a series of processes that involve lots of manual tasks, mostly logging into the proprietary command line interface of your switch vendor, maybe your middle box vendors as well, like load balancers and so forth, so that you can set up network connectivity for each new workload, set up application delivery services for those workloads, set up policies and securities and segmentation for those workloads. The process doesn't scale, and it is simply not elastic enough to support software-defined data centers, which happens to be one of the biggest driving influences on network managers' decision-making today. Network infrastructure teams tell us that two of the biggest drivers of their decision-making today are cloud transformation initiatives, internal cloud transformation initiatives, and software-defined data center initiatives. So that tells me that they're under pressure to modernize their networks and make them more automated and agile and elastic. And they're not going to get that with the legacy technology that they're using today.
Correct, and that's exactly where you guys come in, right? You're kind of the opposite of a legacy technology.
Yeah, and that's right, Torsten. So Big Switch really has purpose-built next-generation data center networks, and instead of this concept of managing switch by switch, as Shamus mentioned, we have the concept of one big switch, one logical control plane across, sort of a two-tier leaf spine topology, which is similar to the types of networks that Google and Facebook have developed for themselves and achieved order of magnitude improvements in OpEx as well as lowering CapEx. So Big Switch has an off-the-shelf software solution that allows any enterprise to do that, but on top of industry standard switching hardware. So we partner with the likes of Dell, EMC, as well as EdgeCore, and our software sits on top of their hardware, and as a result, has this next generation approach of agility, programmability, tying in directly to vCenter in the case of VMware environments, or a very, very scalable plugin with Neutron for OpenStack deployments, and increasingly a lot of focus now on container networking because of where we sit in the stack. We have software both on the switch as well as on the server, and so we're hypervisor resident and are right there where your containers are getting instantiated. So kind of a new way of doing networking that can start very small, single rack, and scale all the way up to support the likes of Verizon, which is using us to deploy their next generation network.
And you're an open platform. That's how you compete against a Cisco ACI, right? You are working with basically any kind of switch other than Cisco switches.
So we have a careful kind of HCL that we manage to make sure that the out-of-box experience for our customers is what we desire. And so we have a rigorous set of testing that we do with our partners like Dell, like Acton, and others in the future. If you think of the trend in networking, there's this concept of network disaggregation, and more of these players like Dell, like HPE, Juniper, and others have started to open up their platforms so third-party software can run on top. That allows them to compete with the likes of a Cisco. And you really can think of Big Switch as sort of the open alternative to a Cisco ACI, but a partner, an ideal SDN underlay for the likes of a NSX overlay, for example.
Interesting. Shamus, what do you think?
Well, we've seen 37% of enterprises tell us that data center network automation and orchestration software has changed how they do things. And one way that change is happening is they're looking at SDN technologies like what Gregg is describing. 95% of enterprises have some kind of data center SDN activity going on inside right now. Most of it takes the form of research, evaluation, and testing, but we're seeing more indication of production deployments out there. It's slowly rising. I think there's a lot of interest in this, and I think it has a lot of potential to change the market. And when you get companies like Dell jumping into your ecosystem, like what Big Switch has, that's a good indicator that you have a good vendor strength behind the solution you're going for.
Thank you, Shamus. Thanks, Gregg, for joining today. This was another episode of EMA Cloud Rants.